Susi Dennison, the European Council on Foreign Relations, specializing in politics and cohesion in European foreign policy. Welcome to the program. Thanks for joining.
Thank you for having me.
We're talking about European foreign policy. Henry Kissinger famously once asked the question, who do I call when I want to call Europe? What kind of answer would he get today?
Well, I think that from the US, there's an increasing sense that it's worth calling the Commission President Ursula von der Leyen. What we've seen with this second Trump administration was an initial overt rejection of the European Union as a body and an attempt to break that down in terms of the trade deals and other sorts of deals that he was willing to break up, to build up with Europeans. But actually, in reality, the events over recent months have shown the importance of the dialogue.
You think there's a change of approach from Washington as far as the European Union is concerned?
I understand the Trump administration as being very pragmatic in terms of operating on the basis of what works.
And undecided?
And undecided as well. What works can change from one week to the next. But I think that what is encouraging for Europeans is that whereas ideologically he rejected the idea that he had to cooperate with the continent, he felt that the European Union was deliberately constructed in order to screw over
the United
America.
States. We do remember that,
when it
yes.
comes from a trade point of view.
Okay.
He's found that in reality that he does need to cooperate with Europeans, and I think that that is a testament to the fact that we have a common sense of interest around security and the economy, and that we're operating in that way.
Since 2009, we've had European Foreign Secretary. It's called High Representative. But did it make the European foreign policy any more effective on the global scene?
I think this role is a difficult one to show impact through, to be completely honest, because I think that for heads of state, it is important to be showing impact on the international stage at home, and that matters for all of the EU countries as much as it does for any other.
There's this intrinsic conflict between that position and the member states, basically.
Exactly. And I think that we've seen a trend since that HRVP role was created, whereby foreign policy issues have become politically more important with the war in Ukraine, with the war in the Middle East, and so on breaking out. We see that European leaders expect to be seen to be active on these files, and very little can be left to Kaja Kallas from their point of view.
As a matter of fact, I'm asking this question because yes, it's basically disagreement between member states that is a problem when it comes to us being, Europe being a main actor on the global political scene. And when you look at the trends now, what's happening in Germany, politically, in France, let alone Hungary or Slovakia or the Czech Republic, we don't know much about it, but we can have our suspicions about it after the elections. Are we going towards more agreement within the European Union or more tensions between the European Union?
I would argue both. I think that there is a common sense of interest at European level that the issues that we need to be tackling are ones which require a collective effort for Europeans. Like the deteriorating security environment, the fact that we have two wars in our neighbourhood, like the fact that Russia, indeed, how to deal with a Russia which is deliberately pushing back against the international order which the European Union was constructed to support, but also economically that voters everywhere are concerned about the rising cost of living, and our power as a single market is one of the key tools that we have to
when you talk about Russia,
growth.
I just want to note that the club of those who would like to go back to business as usual with Russia is actually growing, as a matter of fact.
I would suggest that it's not about going back to business as usual with Russia, but about understanding Russia. So I think that those who are pushing for a need for dialogue at this point are suggesting that Russia will always be our neighbour, and that the way in which the conflict in Ukraine comes to an end is of strong interest to all European countries, and therefore it is important to understand where Russia is coming from politically on that point of view. But certainly I think this is the constant challenge of the European Union. It's the challenge between the goal and then how you get there, and member states have different threat perceptions and different histories which drive them to different conclusions on the how.
I'm dwelling on this subject because of Kaja. You actually mentioned Kaja Kallas, the EU Foreign Secretary, and she said a few months ago, it became clear that the free world needs a new leader. It's up to us Europeans to take this challenge. Are we able to, in 2025 and onwards, to take up this challenge seriously?
I think that there is a way for Europeans to occupy the space that has been left by the US pulling back from wanting international leadership.
But we need more agreement to do that.
But we need more agreement internally.
We are fragmented.
And we also need a different understanding of who we are on the global stage now.
What can make us change this understanding? Because I can't see any process that would take us there.
I think,
other than fear, for example, but it still doesn't work strongly enough at the moment.
No, I agree that fear is not a mobilizing force. But I think that that what can take us there is a common sense that our foreign policy needs to be politically and economically sustainable, and that is ultimately what European leaders are grappling with at the council meetings. So I think sort of working that through
common sense is not a great political currency at the moment.
Common sense, I think, is no. But when I say common sense, I mean a common purpose,
right, okay.
A common agreement on how we go forward. But we could talk about common sense separately, of course. But no, so I think that work together on how we build policies on the global stage, which understand that we are probably a middle power now rather than a top-tier power like the US and China, that we don't have all the choices in front of us that we perhaps did 15 years ago in terms of shaping the new order that comes next, but we have a clear interest in helping to define how the international institutions work together.
Yeah, we do, absolutely do have clear interests, but look, the aspiring powers, global powers, you've mentioned China, Global South, India, others also, they are countries ruled by really firm-hand rulers to start with, very quick decision-making process, very clear-cut goals.
I think ultimately our democracies are what will make us more resilient over the longer term. I think that authoritarian states that are able to pursue sort of clear economic goals, if you take the example of China, they've managed to put together a 10-year strategy in a way that European leaders can only dream of when we look at our European Green Deal versus the Made in China approach. But this said, I think that we are the constant assessment of how we're doing, how governments are doing, that takes place through the electoral process in Europe, pushes for policies to be better, to be more in touch with what people are asking for and more aligned with the things that they're worried about. And ultimately, I think that is what will make European policy making stronger rather than weaker.
Okay, let's take a close look at CEE. We're in Poland at the moment. Freedom Games. Let's talk about Central and Eastern Europe. Recently we had elections in Czechia, in the Czech Republic. Still no government, but we know what the result might be. As a matter of fact, Andrej Babiš as Prime Minister of the Czech Republic. To what extent is it going to change Europe as a whole? Because this country is probably going to be much closer now to Hungary and Slovakia. That's what we suspect.
Yes. But I wouldn't get too hung up on the change of direction from one individual member state in terms of the broader dynamics. I think that what we've seen with...
That would be a third member of the club. That
will be a third member of the club, but I think that during this period we've had other EU member states swing to the right and then swing back again. So I don't think that we should understand these electoral victories for nationalist forces as being...
but they will have some sort of impact, will
they
will
have
not?
some sort of impact, but ultimately I think that what Orban, through Hungarian sort of exceptionalism, particularly in foreign policy making and particularly with regards to policy towards Russia, has shown us is that this can be used tactically but not strategically in terms of changing the direction of European foreign policy making. And ultimately, he has aligned with the collective interest overall with, I've lost count of how many rounds of sanction packages on Russia, and the pursuit of a stronger position against the war in Ukraine. And so I think that this alignment is a recognition that Hungarian interests are in line with the European Union, and we will probably see a similar process for Slovakia.
In Poland, we're still asking ourselves a question. Is the government that we have at the moment just a break in the wave of populism? Or is it a moment where we can prove, yes, you can get out of populism in a democratic way?
I think what we've seen from the example of the US with the swing to the Trump administration, then back to Biden and then back to Trump, is that whether or not this is a long-term trend or whether this swings back and forwards in such polarized societies depends a lot on the offer from progressive governments. So I think it's incumbent on the current government to show the results of the policies that they're pursuing. Ultimately, elections at the moment are often being decided by a relatively small minority which are willing to vote one way or the other. Politics is becoming less tribal in that sense, and so I think that good policy, good delivery from progressive government is the best sort of medicine, if you like. Against,
is it really?
Yeah.
I think in today's world, the world of uncertainty, there's also a story that's behind it that is important for the electorates. Do you think we have a good story, the Europeans, the liberal Democrats?
I think no. At the moment, I don't think we do have a strong story, and that is one of the challenges that we have in European politics, that you have very few leaders who are willing to make a progressive case for internationalism, and therefore the sort of the nationalist narrative about needing to close borders, about looking inward, about not cooperating internationally.
Where to look for those leaders?
Pardon?
Where to look for those leaders?
Where to look for those leaders? Well, I was encouraged listening last night to your foreign minister, Sikorski, who was arguing that nationalism is bad for the nation. I think this kind of very simple slogan is the sort of thing which we need to sort of counter the take back control narrative that we've heard from nationalist leaders for too long. And
taking back control is the slogan we know very well.
Yes, exactly. As you can hear, I'm British, and so that But I think that the British example is quite emblematic of this kind of politics, where we saw with the massive victory from Starmer's government a year ago that you can take back control from a progressive offer if the offer is there. But the delivery challenge a year on is now very real in UK politics.
So maybe I should phrase the last question. Is Europe able to make itself great again?
I would say that the jury is out on this, but I'm a natural optimist. I think that the dynamics of global politics at the moment are such that we will see the instability which comes from the sort of the nationalist tendencies play out in ways that voters choose to back the European offer once again. But as I say, I think a lot of that depends on progressive leaders coming forward and making that argument.
Thank you very much, and thanks for joining. Susi Dennison, thank you.
Thank you for having me.